Have you ever considered how a single, just seemingly isolated event can suddenly pull back the curtain on the mechanics of the entire world?
Yeah, it's actually something we see a lot in this field.
Right, because imagine this scenario. A drone falls out of the sky and crashes onto a runway on a Mediterranean island.
Which on the surface sounds like what a brief, maybe 10-second news alert.
Exactly. It's something you might just swipe past on your phone while you're waiting for your morning coffee.
Right.
But if you actually dissect the wreckage of that specific drone, if you really look at it, it unravels a massive tectonic shift in global geopolitics.
It really does. It exposes these deeply hidden, incredibly complex supply chains of modern warfare.
Supply chains that directly affect the security architecture of the entire globe.
It really is a modern mystery.
Mhm.
And it serves as just the perfect illustration of how, in our current era, looking closely at the physical hardware left behind on a battlefield.
Or in this case, an island runway.
Yeah. Exactly, an island runway. It tells a story that official diplomatic channels spend an enormous amount of energy trying to keep hidden.
You pull on one loose thread of twisted metal, and suddenly you are unraveling a global web of covert alliances and black market commerce.
And that is exactly what we're going to look at today.
Okay, so let's unpack this. That is the journey we are taking you on today. We are bringing you the insights from a really fascinating geopolitical brief that recently dropped on the Patreon platform KULT.
Yeah, the KULT brief. It's essentially a masterclass in synthesis.
It really is. It takes breaking reports from the Times, Reuters, the Washington Post, and Ukrainian intelligence, and it weaves them together into one cohesive, undeniably compelling narrative.
Before we get into it, we should probably clarify our approach here.
Yes, absolutely. I want to be crystal clear with you, our listener. Our deep dive today is going to explore these reports completely impartially.
We are not here to take any political sides.
No. None at all. We're not endorsing any specific viewpoints from the left or the right, or pushing any underlying agenda. Our mission is simply to convey the fascinating facts and the broader ideas contained within this source material.
So you can draw your own conclusion.
Exactly.
Because in a media environment that is often entirely saturated with opinion and spin.
Tell me about it.
Right. There is just immense analytical value in simply laying out the raw data and understanding the actual mechanics of what is happening on the ground.
And the data we have to look at today is truly remarkable in what it reveals about the state of global conflict.
So our goal for this deep dive is to basically trace the anatomy of a single downed drone.
To understand how military technology is secretly flowing around the world, and why this fundamentally changes our previous understanding of international alliances.
So let's start by setting the scene, because the timeline here is absolutely crucial.
Right. We are going back to the night of Sunday, March 1st.
According to detailed reports from Reuters, an Iranian-designed Shahed drone managed to completely evade detection.
It penetrated the airspace of the UK's RAF Akrotiri base in Cyprus and ultimately crashed into the runway.
And it achieved this by flying incredibly low and incredibly slowly.
Which is wild.
The irony of that tactic shouldn't be lost on anyone. We spend billions on highly sophisticated state-of-the-art radar systems.
Systems designed to track hypersonic missiles and stealth fighters at the edge of the atmosphere.
Exactly. Yet this drone essentially employed the tactics of a World War I biplane.
Flying low and slow.
Yeah, low and slow to slip right underneath that multi-million-dollar electronic safety net.
It's like it exploits the very specific blind spots of modern early warning systems, right?
Right, because those systems are often filtered to ignore slow-moving objects. Otherwise, they'd constantly trigger alarms for flocks of birds or local civilian air traffic.
So the fact that it successfully reached the runway of a major strategic military installation like RAF Akrotiri before coming down, that is a significant event in itself.
Now, Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulides confirmed that the attack caused minor material damage.
So it wasn't a catastrophic strike?
No, but it certainly wasn't an isolated anomaly either, considering 2 more of these drones were intercepted the very next morning.
But the narrative takes a sharp turn when you look at the origin.
This is where it gets complicated. The UK Ministry of Defense released a statement indicating that this drone was launched by an Iranian-aligned group operating in Lebanon.
It was not launched directly from Iranian territory.
And that introduces an immediate critical layer of complexity to the theater of operations.
Because we aren't simply analyzing a straightforward scenario of State A firing a weapon at State B.
No, we're looking at a proxy network utilizing hardware that originated elsewhere.
launched from a third-party location
striking a fourth party's military base.
in a fifth country's territory.
It is a logistical and geopolitical nightmare.
But the true revelation of this event wasn't where the drone came from or even where it landed.
It was what investigators found buried deep inside the wreckage.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Fast forward exactly 1 week from the crash to March 8th.
The Times publishes a bombshell report detailing a discovery made by British military intelligence.
Right. When the technical teams sifted through the charred remains of this drone in Cyprus, they didn't just find standard Iranian manufacturing parts.
They uncovered a Russian-made navigation system called the Cometa B.
The Cometa B. And as of that report, this specific piece of technology is sitting in a highly secure laboratory in the UK, undergoing intense forensic analysis.
And this discovery is the absolute linchpin of the KULT brief.
So to understand the gravity of this, we need to look at what the Cometa B actually does.
It's a satellite navigation receiver, but comparing it to the GPS in your smartphone is like comparing a bank vault to a screen door.
A bank vault to a screen door, I like that.
Because the Cometa B is specifically engineered to resist sophisticated electronic warfare.
Right. In modern high-tech conflicts, one of the primary and most cost-effective ways to defeat a swarm of drones is not by shooting them out of the sky with expensive kinetic interceptors.
It's by jamming their navigation signals.
You flood the airspace with electromagnetic noise,
Effectively blinding the drone so it loses its way, crashes, or simply flies in circles until it runs out of fuel.
and the Cometa B acts as an incredibly robust shield against that jamming.
Exactly. It ensures the drone can lock onto its target and maintain its flight path even in highly hostile, electronically contested environments,
So it's essentially installing military-grade armor around the drone's electronic brain.
making it exponentially harder to defend against using non-kinetic means.
That is the practical application, and Ukrainian air defense forces are intimately familiar with this specific piece of hardware.
They first identified the Cometa B system being utilized on intercepted Russian drones back in December of 2025.
So the intelligence community has known for some time that this is a vital, highly effective piece of Russian military technology.
But finding that exact Russian system inside an Iranian attack drone,
One that was launched from Lebanon and crashed into a British base in Cyprus.
that marks a complete and total paradigm shift in how we understand these alliances.
Because prior to this discovery, the accepted diplomatic and intelligence narrative was that the technology transfer was strictly a one-way street.
We all knew, and it has been heavily documented, that Iran was supplying massive quantities of drone technology and airframes to Moscow.
But this Cometa B discovery on that runway in Cyprus is the first confirmed physical evidence of advanced Russian military weaponry being integrated inside an Iranian weapon system utilized in the Middle East.
It completely shatters the old assumption. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is now a reciprocal two-way technology exchange.
And that forces a complete rewrite of the geopolitical equation.
Because a one-way transfer, as we saw previously, suggests a purely transactional relationship.
A desperate buyer and a willing seller exchanging cash or commodities for off-the-shelf weapons.
Right. However, a two-way exchange, particularly one where critical, highly sophisticated subcomponents like anti-jamming receivers are being integrated into the partner's hardware.
That suggests a deeply integrated, highly collaborative military alliance.
They are no longer just trading. They are actively co-developing, upgrading, and hardening these weapons systems together.
The engineering teams must be communicating to ensure a Russian receiver interfaces flawlessly with an Iranian flight controller.
Really, which brings us to a rather fascinating chronological overlap in the sources we are looking at.
Yes, this is a crazy detail. Just days before the Times made this British intelligence finding public on March 8th, someone else made a very loud, very public prediction about exactly this scenario.
On March 5th, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky posted on X, citing an interview he had just conducted with Italia.
The exact quote is striking. He stated point blank, quote, "Iranian Shahed drones contain Russian-made components. This is something we know for sure."
And in that same statement, he actively, almost aggressively urged Western intelligence services to start thoroughly examining the wreckage of drones, striking various targets across the Middle East to prove his assertion.
What's fascinating here is the speed of validation.
It makes this detail so compelling. You have a head of state making a highly specific, seemingly bold public assertion on March 5th.
Declaring with absolute certainty that Russian components are actively embedded inside these Iranian drones operating outside the European theater.
And then a mere 3 days later on March 8th, the British laboratory findings are leaked to the press.
Providing the exact undeniable physical proof he was demanding in the form of the Cometa B system from the Cyprus crash.
It's incredible timing, and it heavily implies that the Allied intelligence networks were clearly already buzzing with his suspicion.
Or perhaps even had preliminary data.
Right. Zelensky effectively forced the public conversation, and the RAF Akrotiri crash provided the undeniable smoking gun that dragged the reality into the public light.
It also serves to highlight the deeply interconnected nature of these modern conflicts.
The signals, intelligence, and forensic data gathered on one front in Eastern Europe directly predicted and explained the unexpected hardware showing up on a runway in the Mediterranean.
It proves definitively that analysts and policymakers can no longer afford to view these regional conflicts in isolated vacuums.
The supply chains and the technology are bleeding across borders at an alarming rate.
So let's review. We have an Iranian-designed drone. We have a highly advanced Russian anti-jamming system.
But listener, the global footprint of this single weapon is vastly wider than just Tehran and Moscow.
Yes. If you look at the KULT brief's inclusion of data from United 24 Media, which is sourced from Ukrainian intelligence, it reviews the sheer scale of what we are dealing with.
When technical teams completely neutralize and dismantle these Shahed drones, specifically the widely used Shahed 136 model, they don't just find domestic parts.
No, the drone is practically a flying catalog of Western microelectronics.
It is a terrifying military-grade Frankenstein's monster patched together from the global tech industry.
Like, imagine trying to build a custom PC using parts from all over the world, but for a military weapon.
When you look at the teardown reports, the reliance on Western technology is staggering.
These aren't just superficial additions either.
No, these are the critical foundational building blocks of the weapon's core functionality. We're talking about everything from voltage regulators to microprocessors managing flight control surfaces.
The hard data here is genuinely eye-opening. The Ukrainian intelligence analysis identified at least 75 separate, distinct foreign components inside the Shahed 136.
75 individual pieces of technology that were not manufactured in Iran or Russia.
And the corporate roll call of where these parts originate reads like a who's who of the global tech sector.
The largest proportion of these foreign components comes directly from manufacturers based in the United States.
We are talking about massive industry-leading names: Texas Instruments, Analog Devices, and Xilinx, which is now a subsidiary of AMD.
And the procurement network extends far beyond the U.S. border as well.
The teardown documentation also confirms the presence of components from major European tech giants like STMicroelectronics and Infineon Technologies,
existing right alongside crucial parts sourced from specialized manufacturing hubs in Taiwan and China.
Now I know exactly what you might be thinking. You are probably asking yourself, wait a minute. Aren't there massive, highly publicized, incredibly strict global sanctions levied against both Iran and Russia?
How on earth are top-tier American and European microchips ending up inside a kamikaze drone that is crashing into a British military base?
It seems like a massive failure of international law.
It really highlights the stark reality of how global trade actually functions in the 21st century versus how policymakers wish it functioned.
The short answer to your question is an intricate labyrinthine network of loopholes and intermediaries.
The companies manufacturing these microchips are obviously not directly boxing them up and shipping them to defense contractors in Tehran or Moscow.
That would be a blatant, easily prosecuted violation of international sanctions.
Instead, these state actors exploit the incredibly porous, high-velocity nature of the global tech supply chain.
They rely on vast networks of intermediary companies.
Often shell corporations front businesses or ostensibly legitimate third-party distributors
that are deliberately located in non-sanctioned third countries.
The logistics of it are almost darkly comical in their complexity.
A distributor in a completely neutral, non-sanctioned country places a massive bulk order for microchips.
On paper, the stated end use is for a perfectly legitimate civilian purpose.
Manufacturing washing machines, industrial agricultural equipment, or consumer electronics.
The chips are shipped legally.
And then quietly off the books, those pallets of chips are sold to another shell company,
re-exported across a porous border,
and ultimately find their way onto the assembly lines of the military supply chains in sanctioned nations.
It demonstrates the fundamental flaw in relying solely on traditional trade embargoes.
Because microelectronics are entirely ubiquitous and often dual use.
A microscopic chip designed to regulate the automated functions of a factory assembly line can, with minimal modification, be repurposed to guide a ballistic missile.
Or manage the complex flight controls of a loitering munition.
The global supply chain is so vast, so deeply interconnected and moves at such a relentless speed that attempting to track every single microchip from the pristine factory floor in Taiwan or Texas to its final true destination.
It's an almost insurmountable logistical challenge for regulators.
They're essentially trying to play a global game of whack-a-mole against state-backed intelligence agencies that have unlimited budgets.
To set up new shell companies faster than the old ones can be sanctioned.
It really paints a vivid picture of a world where physical technology simply cannot be contained by borders, treaties, or embargoes.
But the physical hardware, the American microchips, the Russian Komet system, the Iranian airframe, that is only half of the story detailed in this brief.
To fully grasp the gravity of the shifting geopolitical landscape, we have to move our focus from the physical technology you can touch to the invisible data flowing silently between these nations.
The hardware is merely the tangible smoking gun evidence of a much deeper, far more strategic alignment.
If we zoom out and look at the macro level, the most concerning aspect of these reports is the sophisticated intelligence sharing that is now actively taking place to support these weapons systems.
The KULT brief highlights crucial recent reporting from the Washington Post on this exact front.
The reports revealed that Russia has moved beyond simply supplying anti-jamming hardware.
They have been actively providing Iran with highly classified intelligence, specifically regarding the precise locations and movements of United States military assets stationed throughout the region.
The strategic implications of that are profound.
Providing real-time or near real-time targeting intelligence is a massive structural escalation from simply selling or bartering weapons.
It implies a shared strategic objective and a fusion of military capabilities.
The quotes extracted from the sources in the brief really drive home the scale of this invisible alliance. One intelligence source described this data-sharing relationship as a, quote, fairly comprehensive effort.
This isn't just a casual exchange of rumors over a diplomatic dinner. This phrase suggests a systematic, highly organized, ongoing pipeline of actionable data.
Fairly comprehensive. That is chilling in its bureaucratic neutrality.
It likely means dedicated teams of analysts sitting at desks in Moscow, continuously packaging satellite imagery, signals intelligence, and logistical data.
And securely transmitting it to operational commanders in Tehran.
It means the fog of war is being artificially lifted for one side by a global superpower.
And the diplomatic rhetoric surrounding this partnership has shifted dramatically to match this new reality.
Completely shedding any historical pretense of neutrality or distance.
The masks are completely off. Russia's own ambassador to London, Andrei Kilin, recently went on Sky News and explicitly stated that Moscow is not neutral and that it supports Iran in the ongoing regional conflicts.
He didn't hide behind diplomatic doublespeak. He said it out loud on international television.
When an ambassador speaks that plainly, it forces an immediate recalibration from Western military leadership.
You see, Britain's defense chief, Sir Richard Knighton, responding directly to this new paradigm.
He stated quite plainly that there is no doubt that high-level intelligence is flowing continuously from Russia to Iran.
He explicitly categorized this unprecedented level of cooperation as a warning sign.
A warning sign. That is a heavy phrase from a defense chief, and it really sticks with you.
So what does this entire geopolitical puzzle mean for you, the listener, as you try to navigate and make sense of this constant, overwhelming stream of global news?
Let's take a breath and retrace our steps on the journey we've just taken.
We started with what looked like a localized, easily dismissed incident.
A single drone, utilizing primitive low and slow tactics, crashing onto a runway at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus.
But by looking closer, by refusing to take the surface-level narrative at face value, we've unpacked a hidden world.
We found a highly sophisticated Russian anti-jamming system, the Komet,
proving undeniably that a two-way technology exchange now exists between Moscow and Tehran.
We saw how Ukrainian President Zelensky's seemingly bold prediction was validated by British laboratory findings just days later.
Showing how fast intelligence moves.
We mentally cracked open the drone itself to reveal a staggering 75 foreign components.
Highlighting a massive, uncontrollable web of Western microchips flowing right through sanctions loopholes via Asian intermediaries.
And finally, we zoomed out to see that all of this physical hardware is being fueled and directed by a deepening geopolitical alliance.
And a fairly comprehensive sharing of state-level intelligence.
It is a profound masterclass in how deeply interconnected our modern world truly is.
And it demands a fundamental shift in how we think about global security moving forward.
The prompt for us all is to consider the broader implications of the weapon we just dissected.
We've established that these weapons are essentially open-source global assemblies that outpace regulation.
But let's take that thought one step further into the future.
If a proxy militia, like the Lebanese group that launched this drone, now has routine access not only to advanced state-level hardware like the Cometa B,
But also to the fairly comprehensive satellite targeting intelligence of a global superpower like Russia.
How does that change the very nature of asymmetric warfare?
If a non-state actor is suddenly armed with the invisible state-level brain of a superpower, are we no longer fighting isolated militias, but rather the proxy arms of superpowers wielding untraceable, globally sourced technology?
that is exactly the kind of unsettling, complex question that fundamentally changes how you look at the next breaking news headline.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden complexities of the modern world. Keep questioning the narratives, keep unpacking the details, and never underestimate what a single charred piece of debris might be trying to tell you about the future.